Are portals right for you? Well, in this video, we're gonna go head to head against two of our cleanest and most recent builds and hopefully answer that question for you. So let's go take a look. Hey everybody, it's Bubba with X's 4x4 and we build badass 4x4s. Well, today we're gonna do a comparison between a Jeep that's built on portals and a Jeep that's built basically the way we built everything before, with big axles and big suspension. And these Jeeps happen to have started out life exactly the same. They're both factory built 392 Wranglers, XR packages, and they're both red.
You couldn't get any better than this.
Let's dive into both of these builds and find out what makes them both unique and special. So before the guys get started putting the portals on the Jeep, I want to show you exactly what they look like and how they work. But as they're installing them, we're going to go into more detail and show you how it works. In fact, we're going to install one side and leave the other side stock so we can kind of walk back and forth and show you. So starting right here in the front, this is going to be your front portal, okay? As you can see, unlike other portals on the market that just bolt onto the factory steering knuckle, well, that's not really, I really just don't think that's a very strong way to do it. That's putting a lot of leverage against the factory knuckles. And instead, 74 wheel builds you an entire new steering knuckle for the Jeep Wrangler. Also, the Ford Bronco and the Toyotas, all the same. Instead of throwing new parts at old parts, you're gonna get a fully machined knuckle and portal assembly that was designed, engineered, built in California, in the United States of America, not some other country overseas. So you can really tell when you're looking at this thing, the attention to detail and design, it's just amazing. Look, it really is a work of art. But you can see we got a really heavy duty 8-lug unit bearing down here. Your input goes right here. So your stock axle shafts are gonna go stab right in here. They're gonna go through their 1.22 gear reduction right here and come out in this 35 spline unit bearing down here, 8-lug. So 8 on 6.5, very common pattern. Really the only tricky part is finding a wheel with enough offset so it's not sticking out too far, but Raceline's got us covered here. I think it's gonna look real good. In fact, I think our scrub is gonna be real close when this is all said and done. Yeah, as you can tell, super sexy on the front. It shouldn't be that complicated of an install, but we'll see. Moving to the rear, we're basically just gonna remove the rear axle shaft assembly out of the housing. This axle shaft is gonna go inside. It's gonna go inside the locker. It's gonna stab into our input right here. Bolts up to the factory mounting surfaces right here. And pretty much it. Fill them up with fluid and go. I'm gonna let the guys go ahead and start tearing down. I'm gonna have them do the passenger side first so that we can compare one side to the other, so you guys can see exactly what these portals are doing compared to stock. Also, I wanna jump down here real quick and take a measurement from the floor to the bottom of the diff. We're going to measure the 3.8 inches of lift. We're gonna verify that. Also, we're gonna take a measurement from the floor to the center line of the wheels so we know exactly how much height difference we're gonna have just from the tires alone. So whatever stock tires are on there now versus the 40-inch trail grapplers we're putting on, we'll add that to our lift that we net from the portals and tell you exactly how much lift this entire build gets at the end of the day. So let's get started. These badass portal axles from 74 Weld are machined from billet aluminum. They're super strong. They're not gonna bolt to your existing steering knuckles because that would just be ridiculous. And I don't think I would trust it. This I completely trust. In fact, everything I've seen them build so far has been above and beyond my expectations. It's going to add 3.88 inches of ground clearance underneath the differential, and it's gonna create 3.8 inches of separation over here underneath the fenders, so we can easily throw those 40-inch trail grapplers on it and haul ass. But the best part is that 3.8 inches of ground clearance underneath the diff. Now we can go on the trails and go over all kinds of rocks that we otherwise wouldn't be able to in one of these other standard conventional style builds. Both of these started out with 10 3/4 inches of ground clearance underneath the diff. So let me go grab my tape measure. We're gonna crawl underneath these and we're gonna see what the difference is between portal axles and Curry F9 axles. All right, now both of these started out with about a 32-inch tire from the factory. And since they both started out with the same tire and they ended up with the same tire, we don't really care what the net change is between the tires. So let's just take a measurement from the ground to the diff. We're at 17 1/4 on the portal axle. Starting out at 10 3/4 with 32-inch tires, going to the portals with the 40s, we've added 6.5 inches of ground clearance underneath the diff. Let's head over to the F9 now and see what the difference is. Ow. All right, guys, let's take a measurement under the F9 now. Right at 14 inches. So, if we take the net difference between the two, we're actually 3.5 inches taller with the portal axles underneath the diff. Now that's huge. We're gonna gain a lot of ground clearance by going that route. We're gonna avoid a lot of rocks on the trail with the portal axle Jeep. Now there's nothing wrong with the F9s. They're badass, they're super sexy. But if we're looking for the ultimate in ground clearance, portals is where it's gonna be at. Super amazing, man. I really love it. And the best part is, you guys are never gonna mess with your ride quality from your factory 392 Wrangler. As we all know, they come with a great suspension dialed in from the factory, and there's no reason to mess with it. We're not gonna mess with your control arms. We're not gonna mess with your steering geometry, none of that. In fact, we don't even have to re-gear it. This customer chose to keep the 456 gears in spite of the 1.22 gear reduction. So he actually ends up at 5.56. That's not terrible because the 8HP75 transmission does a great job of absorbing that gear ratio, and you're hardly gonna notice it. In fact, I test drove this thing at 75 miles an hour. You probably wouldn't notice the difference if you did any kind of re-gear on this thing. I personally think I would re-gear it to 410 and give myself a final drive of 5.0. But again, I don't think there's gonna be enough difference there to really make it worth it. It's one less step you're gonna have to take if you ever build it back to its original build. What I really like the most about it, you guys are gonna be in and out of the shop in like 2 days if we're just doing this. If you wanna do anything else that's gonna allow you to run this size of a tire on a Jeep like this, you're gonna be here a lot more than a day or two. In fact, let's go over here and let's take a look at this other build and we'll explain some of the differences that are on it compared to this one. Now, as far as lift height goes, it ain't that much different. I took a measurement earlier. These 2 points right here, and we're actually only sitting about 3/4 of an inch taller over here. And that could just be preload. So, you're not gonna really gain that much difference going with one of these suspensions versus one of these for getting your overall height up off the ground. That's pretty awesome considering we didn't have to cut any brackets off of this one and weld in any new shock mounts. Another bonus of leaving these things alone, right? Let's talk about overall width of the vehicle, because these portals are adding about 3.5 inches of width per side, 7 inches overall. You'd be thinking that, man, my tires are gonna be sitting way out there now. These Curry axles with 70-inch wheel mounting surfaces and about 4.5 inches of back spacing on the wheels are somewhere around 87 inches overall width, outside of tire to outside of tire. We took a measurement over here, pretty close to the same, if not exactly the same. So, how do we do that? Well, we searched high and low for a good wheel that would work. We wanted something that had a high offset to it. And Raceline makes a beautiful forged beadlock in the 8-on-6.5 pattern. So we paired that up as a plus 25 offset. By the time we get that bolted up on there, it's hardly that much wider than the Curry's over there with a 4.5 inch back spacing wheel on it. And it freaking looks great. All right, now that the guys got the portals installed, we're gonna go for a road test to see how well the road manners actually are with the portals installed. And also to see if there's any gear noise, because there's been some speculation that because 74 Weld uses a straight cut gear, that it would be noisy. But so far with the windows up, we can't tell anything. So I'm gonna roll the windows down real quick. And I don't know if you guys can pick this up or not on the mic, but I can't hear any gear noise whatsoever. So right now we're doing about 60 because we're on the access road, but I've had it up to 75 so far on the interstate and I didn't get any noise. And no gear whine. So far, I'm very impressed with everything that we've seen on the portal install up to this point. So we're gonna head back to the shop now and do some comparisons to a non-portal built Jeep. But portals aren't for everybody. If you guys remember, a couple of years ago, we built a really clean Jeep built for my buddy Tony.
Yay.
Called the Rooster. And this is identical to that build. It's got the Evo double throwdown, the Evo long arm suspension on it, and the Curry F9 axles. It is the meat and potatoes of that build. We added some Gen-Right bumpers to it and a Motobilt tire carrier to the rear. And really that's the only difference between those two. This is a suspension that is designed to go fast and absorb everything along the way.
I want to go fast.
And as cool as that portal axle is, the suspension that's on top of it isn't going to do what this suspension will do. Just because portals are cool, and I definitely think a lot of you 392 guys should be doing it, it's not for everybody. This is going to take a beating in some of the most abusive places on the planet and still keep going. I mean, we've proven that. While it may not be exactly the most practical Jeep for daily driving, it is definitely rides as smooth as butter on and off road. The Curry F9s are some of my favorite axles out there. So when guys are talking about a build that really is gonna look good and perform as good as it looks, that's where I go, is with the Curry F9s. And the Evo double throwdown suspension pairs very nicely with the Evo long arm. Still gives you a lot of wheel travel in the front. Maybe not as much as their bolt-on coilovers, but that's due to the bypass shock in the front. It kind of limits the travel. Still, you get a ton of suspension travel out of this, like almost 14 inches. And you're not gonna get that out of your portal axles. You're gonna be limited to what the stock suspension will provide you in wheel travel. This is definitely a radical build. I love it, it's a beautiful build. He tops it off with the Gen-Right fenders on it. We color matched them to the body, paint that tube black. It really pops well. It's very, very sexy build. Both of them are running Rockslide Engineering steps. Power steps, if you're gonna run power steps, that's the step to run. It's gonna hold up to the abuse off-road, and it's gonna help those short people get in and out very easily. I don't have that problem. But even if I am 6'3", I love those steps. I still use them to get in and out of these Jeeps every day. All right, guys, whether portal axles are for you or not, it doesn't matter. What we've shown you in this video is that we can build you something badass either way. So when you guys are ready, let us know and we'll take care of you. For more videos on off-roading and other cool stuff, click here.